Welcome to another Tuesday of Crazy Chris's Rants. I'm going to do some more sports here this week. Not as much to cover as we did last week. Not going to go over hockey and basketball standings. Not much has changed. Teams have went up and down in the standings as they play 82 games in basketball and hockey both, and of course baseball will be the same way because they still play the 162 game schedule. It's a little bit difficult to keep up with standings and with teams changing up and down, so we're going to do that probably every other week or every couple of weeks, just to kind of let you know where teams are, where they're going, which direction they're going. More so, this channel, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to cover main things that may have happened in the world of sports that we may or may not miss. So to keep you up to date, San Francisco Giants have hired the first female assistant coach. Her name is Alyssa, I believe it's Nolan. This, as what I know, is going to be the first coach as an assistant coach at any level or at any position of a coach in any league, because most of the females are not coaches. So we'll see how that works out for San Francisco. Definitely going a different way, and we'll see how that goes. Who knows? I mean, there are some female coaches that have been at the collegiate level that have been coaches for basketball, softball, and other sports, and have an outstanding legacy. Pat Summerall comes to mind with one of them over at Tennessee, the University of Tennessee. Built a very good program there for a long time, and did really well there. There's more women in different things in sports as referees and things like that. We're seeing them come into their own, and it's different for a lot of people, but it is something that is interesting to see, and it is actually a good thing to see that some of these females can get out there and actually do the same thing as most of the males and do about the same quality job. And it just goes to show it doesn't matter if it's a male or a female. If given the right chance and given the circumstance, somebody might do a better job than somebody else. So we'll see how those go. Drew Rosenhaus will no longer be Antonio Brown's agent. Antonio Brown been in trouble lately, shifted around to a lot of teams this season before ultimately being let go, and he's a lot of trouble with this young man, and his agent has apparently had enough, and he said he's not going to represent him anymore unless he goes through like a rehab type stint thing and cleans up his act, which as of today doesn't look like it's going to be a very promising rehab stint of anything. Jeff Teague and Trayvon Graham were traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Atlanta Hawks. Alan Crabb was involved in the trade. Teague's been a guy that's been in the league for a little while. I'm not really too familiar with these other two gentlemen. This is not a trade that was very much talked about in the NBA. I assume because it's not a lot of big name guys, so we're just gonna kind of go with what happened there. Speaking of the Super Bowl is going to be in 2 weeks. That's going to be in Miami, and we now know it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs against San Francisco 49ers. And Demi Lovato is going to be is going to sing the national anthem. And speaking of the Super Bowl, the halftime show, I believe, is still going to be Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. These two teams I will make a prediction on who I think will win. I think San Francisco will win. It'll be interesting to see this game though, because both of the teams have pretty good offenses, and their defenses are moderately good, but they are lacking somewhat. And we'll see what happens. But I'm kind of expecting a high scoring game, and it should be more than last year. Of course, we know that one last year was not a high scoring game whatsoever. It's kind of boring. So we'll see if maybe this one's a little bit more high scoring. I expect, I hope that we get to see Coach Andy Reid of the Kansas City Chiefs kind of break out of the conservative play calling, because there's a lot of times when he is very conservative on his play calling, and the Super Bowl is not an area where you need to be really conservative. You need to kind of go at it, and if you've got your opponent on the ropes, you need to keep your foot down on the gas pedal. We saw what happened with Atlanta against New England a couple years ago. Atlanta up at the half and just fell apart. Just fell apart. Just didn't play the rest of the game. And that's just how that happened. And wasn't good for him at all. In other news, Rocky Johnson passed away at the age of 75. For those of you who don't know who Rocky Johnson is, Rocky Johnson was a WWE wrestler. He is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. He is The Rock's father. That's why The Rock is a third generation superstar. His grandfather was High Chief Peter Maivia, who wrestled back in the day. And his dad is Soul Man Rocky Johnson. Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas were the first. They dubbed them the first African American tag team to win the tag titles at the time. And so a lot of history with The Rock and his father and his grandfather, and him being a third generation superstar. One of the only other third generation superstars that is in there now is Randy Orton. There's a couple other gentlemen that are second and third generation superstars that are there now, but none of them have had quite the success in the run of The Rock and Randy Orton both. So that's why they're kind of heralded more than some of the other wrestlers. The Golden Knights in hockey have fired their coach Gerard Gallant and hired Peter DeBoer, who was fired from San Jose. This is a weird storyline because the Sharks play in the same division as the Golden Knights. And it's really weird because Gallant was an actual good coach, led them to the Stanley Cup Finals in their first year, and they've been up at the top of the standings, and it's just really weird why he has now been let loose. And not real sure the circumstances. San Jose has kind of been dropping a little bit, and that's why DeBoer was fired from there. And I understand you want to bring in an established coach off of a team, but I don't really understand the hiring process behind DeBoer going to Las Vegas for Gallant's position. It kind of boggles my mind. I mean, DeBoer he is a proven winner, being at San Jose for a while there and getting them to the playoffs, but this is just kind of a puzzling two coaches fired and one coach hired at a place where winning was already a thing to begin with. So we'll see how that works out in the next couple months. Okay, like I said, we're not going to go over every wrestling thing. We're just going to go over highlights that we've seen that happened. Wednesday night at AEW, Hangman Page and Kenny Omega won a tag team match, and they are now the number one contenders for the tag titles. not much else happened on the show. They are just building up to their next pay-per-view. And as soon as I get the date and everything for that, I'll let you know. Trying to get into this organization, trying to figure out what they do and everything else. A little bit different. But they are growing, and they will get better as they go along. In NXT, Bianca Belair won a number one contender women's battle royal to face the champion at the next pay-per-view that they will have as well. I'll have to get the other date on that and everything. In NXT, the women's champion there is, I believe it's Rhea Ripley. And so Bianca Belair has been in NXT for quite some time. They're trying to kind of, I guess, move her around to a main event status. It'd be nice to see. She does exceptionally well as a heel. I think they try to kind of cross her between a heel and a face. They really need to stick her with heel. That's where she does her best work. And also Ace Austin retains in Impact. We're switching over to Impact now, which was on Tuesday night. Ace Austin retains the X Division title in a fatal 4-way match that included Moose, Fallah Bahh, and Eddie Edwards. I'm not really sure why, unless they're still going with the X Division non-weight limit, that he would be competing against the likes of Moose, Fallah Bahh, and Eddie Edwards, because Ace Austin is not a very big, he's not a very big wrestler. Fallah Bahh probably 300 to 400 pounds, and Moose is probably close to 300. Eddie Edwards is only the only person that's even close to Ace Austin's weight, and I think Eddie outweighs him by quite a bit too. But it's good to see the kind of the underdog kind of win the match, so that's a good thing. Also, we're going to switch over to just MMA for just a quick minute. A fight that was billed pretty highly between McGregor and Cowboy, or who is known as Cowboy. McGregor knocks him out in 40 seconds in round 1. Not much to say there. That's just kind of embarrassing in a way, because this match was kind of touted kind of highly for a couple months, and for McGregor to just win it in 40 seconds, that's just a little bit ridiculous. 40 seconds in round 1. Almost all the other matches on the card went at least 2 rounds, if not all the way to decision. And your main event goes 40 seconds. That's kind of a shame. On SmackDown on Friday night, Kane shows up at the beginning of the show talking about entering the Royal Rumble, and he baits Bray Wyatt to the ring, and the lights go off. The lights come back on, and Bray Wyatt's the Fiend, who is Bray Wyatt, he expects to jump Kane in the ring, and does the red light thing. Kane is already down at the entrance of the ramp, at the exit end of the ramp, and so Bray Wyatt does not know what's going on, and it's actually a setup, and Daniel Bryan starts beating him down. The Fiend goes back through a hole in the ring, but before he is able to get away, Daniel Bryan comes away with what looks like a lock of his hair. I believe that's what it is his hair. And holding it proudly up. He challenges the Fiend to a strap match at Royal Rumble, because obviously he's tired of the Fiend being able to escape and get away. So I don't think that's the main thing for the strap match anyway. I think they just wanted to throw a stipulation in there, make it a specialty match, as they do sometimes. And, I mean, it's okay, and that's a good thing. Every now and then, you know, you got to have something that's like ladder match or something here and there. You know, you got to break the monotony of just regular matches. People want to see different things. I grew up when the Attitude Era was around, and it was constantly hardcore matches, cage matches, cell matches. I mean, you named it, they had it. You know, tables matches, ladder matches. You know, I think I've done said that anyway, but you know, TLC matches, which is tables, ladders, and chairs. They had all kinds of different stuff going on. And, you know, we just got used to seeing that. But it kept the show fresh and interesting every so often. Going on. Lacey Evans pins Bayley, and she will be able to challenge for the title at the Rumble. This will be one of Lacey's, I think it's her second opportunity at a championship match, but this time she is the face, Bayley is the heel. We'll see how they play that out. Also, Lacey has drawn the attention of Sasha Banks lately. We'll see if that has anything to play in the title match. Hopefully it is just a one-on-one match and we get a pretty good, decent match out of it. Roman Reigns wins a table match against Robert Roode, and as such he was able to pick the stipulation against Baron Corbin in their match that they're going to have at Royal Rumble, which basically the storyline for me has gotten stale and has gotten boring, but the stipulation he picks is a Falls Count Anywhere match at the Rumble. And the Rumble, I think, is, I believe it's this next Sunday. Pro Bowl is also this next Sunday for those of you that will be watching it. I will probably not watch it. It's become more of a celebrity pick your team type deal, and it's become a joke. My thought process is what they need to do is hockey, basketball, and football need to have their all-star games during the season, and they need to make it mean something. Baseball has now done that, where the winner of the all-star game gets home field advantage in the World Series. These other leagues need to do it, because basketball, some of the slam dunk competitors are not wanting to compete and are not wanting to play in the all-star game because they fear that they'll get hurt. So obviously the all-star game doesn't get watched a whole lot because nobody wants to see just some of the stars. They want to see them all. Same thing with hockey. Hockey has Ovechkin has been the captain of the Metro for the past 2 years. He's taken both. He's taken last year and he's going to take this year off, and he says it's to rest up. They'll suspend him for one game. I think the suspension should be heavier. These people, the fans, they voted you in, and you need to play at the All-Star game. You need to be at the All-Star game. There, you know, yeah, you might get injured. Yeah, you might not. And here's the thing. The Penguins had Malkin injured for the beginning of the season for a long time. He came back. Crosby got injured. Crosby was out for a long time. He came back. They're second in the division. You're second in the division with a bunch of injuries, and you're second in your own division, and there's only 2 or 3 teams that have more points in the standings than you do. So now, where's your excuse if you don't play at the All-Star game for somebody like Ovechkin or somebody like that? There's no excuse. They're only 4 to 6 points ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins at the moment. What does he think he's going to do? So it kind of burns me up a little bit. And then in football, the people that you vote in, they're going to be in the Super Bowl, they're not going to play the Pro Bowl game. They're really not. They're just not going to do it. And I know the season's not that long, but at the same point, you know, you've got to do something about this. You really have to, because hardly anybody watches these things anymore. They moved it from the end of the season. They used to have it at the end of the season. They moved it to the week before the Super Bowl. That still is not going to help. They moved it away from Hawaii every time. It still doesn't help. Um, you just got to do something with it. I don't really know what the solution is, but there's got to be something else done. On Raw, there was a ladder match between U.S. champion Andrade, and he retains against Rey Mysterio. There's a really bad spot on this. Rey climbs the ladder, gets interfered with by Zelina Vega, who climbs up and is helping Andrade. And Andrade ends up DDTing Rey on a ladder, and the ladder breaks in half, and it's from a good distance in the air, and it looks really bad. Rey got back up from it, but it looked really bad. And then they tried to DDT him on the outside on the exposed concrete, and Humberto Carrillo comes down and makes the save. But that spot with Rey with the DDT, it just didn't look good. I mean, I'm sure he's fine, but it just didn't look good. It looked pretty bad. It looked really rough. Rollins and Murphy win the tag titles over the Viking Raiders. I'm not sure where we're going with the storylines here. At the beginning of the night, the Viking Raiders came out to help Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens because Rollins was the first person out with the Authors of Pain and talking about what happened last week and trash talking and all 8 men get into a brawl once Buddy Murphy comes out. So we'll see how all that plays out. But for now, Murphy and Rollins win the tag titles with actually no help from the Authors of Pain, which was kind of a surprise that the heel team won the titles. So we'll see how it keeps going. And also from last week, I wanted to point out something on Tuesday on Impact Wrestling in case I didn't go over it. Impact Wrestling has the first women's heavyweight champion that I'm aware of in any wrestling. Tessa Blanchard has won their World Heavyweight Championship belt, the big belt, and to my knowledge, this is the first woman that has ever held that belt. I mean, Chyna, back in the Attitude Era, had like an Intercontinental title run, things like that. But I think this is the first ever women's wrestling champion that it is not a women's title. So, there's two things that Impact can do with this. Number one, and this would be highly advised against, do not have her drop the belt immediately, because then everybody thinks that you just put it on her just because you would have the distinction of being the first company to do that. That would not look good. The second one is let her keep the title for a while before dropping it. And make it maybe like a specialty match, maybe like a fatal 4-way or something like that whenever you have her drop it. That way, she's not the one that has to be pinned or made to submit or anything like that to lose the title. That way she still looks like she's strong and she's still a good wrestler like she is. And you don't have to really sacrifice anything on that one. She is also a third generation superstar that is in Impact Wrestling. Another one of those as well. So there's that on there. Video game wise, not really much to talk about on the video game front. We got some different games that we're probably not going to be streaming them right now, but we'll probably stream them a little bit at some point. Me and Jim are playing a new game called Styx. It's a goblin, and it's kind of a It's kind of a thief type game, kind of a stealth game. Um, it has its problems. It's an okay game, but it does have its problems. It is 2-player. The second player though has the issue of you get hit one time and you die, and then you have to wait 10 seconds to respawn. So you can't fight the enemies. So the main person has to fight the enemies. Now, you can do other things among there, and as long as one of you is still alive, the other one can regenerate at the same point. But they have a lot of different medals and stuff, and like I told Jim the other day, I would rather much more play Dishonored or Thief in place of this game. But we're going to give it a shot, see if we can do marginally good at it, maybe beat it. I'm going to be working on some other games myself. I hope to finish quite a few and get started on maybe some of the Final Fantasy ones that I have for not only the Xbox, but now with the emulator I have almost all of the Final Fantasy games. I would like to stream them, but most of them take quite a bit of time, and nobody really wants to sit there and watch you grind stuff out, so I might have to do some stuff offline and then do the main parts of the story online. That way people get enjoyment out of the said games. Friday Night Fisticuffs. Last week I did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 with another stream of The Simpsons, both arcade. I think I'm going to do Turtles in Time, which is the fourth Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game that hit consoles. I believe I'm going to do that one on the arcade as well. There will probably be another stream of another game if I can find one between then, so just kind of stay tuned for that to see what another game might be with that one. One thing I want to add is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 stream that I streamed Friday. For those of you who don't know, I did the arcade version. It's a little bit different. The new Xbox version of it is a little bit different. Mostly the same. The Nintendo version is the one that's different. It's got 2 extra areas that are not on the arcade, and I didn't really think too much about that, but they're not on the arcade port, and I guess Nintendo had added the two extra areas in. I don't know that I will stream them. One is just an Arctic place with jumping snowmen and a big wolf thing to fight at the end of one. The other one is a kind of like a Japanese or like an Asian setting with a shogun that has a head that flies around the room while you're trying to beat him. So that's really all that's cut back. The other game I might try to stream the same time as Turtles in Time was I had another game in mind, and I lost it. So if I can remember it here in the next couple minutes, I'll let you guys know. But I did have another game in mind. But there are so many different ones that I'm just always looking, trying stuff out. Like I said, if you guys have any ideas or any thoughts on what you would like to see, let me know. I'll see if I have it. If I don't have it, I'll see if I've got anything that's related close to it, if I can stream that. And just kind of let us know, what you'd like to kind of see on there. And we'll see if we can get that on there for you. And we'll see if we can get it done for you, actually, too, because there's a couple of games that Jim wants me to do right now, being Blaster Master and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. And I can get pretty far through them, but I don't know that I can actually finish them. I've been trying to finish them, and a little bit tougher toward the end than what I'm used to. But that will be all for this week. Join us next Tuesday As always, hit like if you like the video, or if you're just passing by. Helps us know kind of where we're at, what we're doing. Like I said, if you have any comments or suggestions or ideas, leave those in the comment section. Jim's going to start uploading kind of some of the streams that we do with these, make it a little bit more interesting. I think the playthroughs are mostly mine or his. He's going to try to sync them up with these videos. That way, while you're listening to me talk and rant, jabber on, you can watch playthrough. I am going to say one other thing that kind of I didn't write down, but I kind of wanted to touch on, because it was kind of brought to my attention that, and some of you WVU fans, again, not going to like me very well, they lost in basketball the other night to an unranked K-State team. And a lot of people say, well, it's because of like the pedigree of Duke and Kentucky and Kansas and all these other teams. You know, they're so well known that when they take a loss, they don't go down that far. No, when Duke or somebody like that, or North Carolina or somebody like that takes a loss, they go down in the standings, and they don't go down as far as WVU. They go down because they lose to a team that's either ranked or a team that has some quality wins, and the whole thing has kind of projected that in there. So that's why they only go down a few spots. When you lose to an unranked K-State team that has not hardly beaten anybody, there's a problem. Because a lot of teams in the Big 12 are not ranked right at the moment. When your schedule is full of that, full of unranked teams, you're going to head down when you lose. It's going to happen. I hate to say it, but it's the fact. It's how it goes. I've seen teams, you know, I'm not 100% with them agreeing that Gonzaga should be the number 1 seed, but I haven't seen who Gonzaga's playing at the time. I don't know who they've been playing. So, I mean, if they're playing top tier teams, yeah, you can take a loss here and there, and you'll be fine. But if you're playing lower ranked teams and you start losing those games, you got a problem. You got a problem, and you're gonna sink. You're gonna sink like a stone in the water. So that's a little bit of an issue. So, but that's going to be all for the rant for this evening. Join us next Tuesday. This will be uploaded soon, and we'll see what you guys think.